Hello everyone and welcome to episode 69 of Podcast of Five Rings, your source of enlightenment in the realm of video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast of Five Rings releases Monday mornings on iTunes and SoundCloud, and topic by topic, day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday. Catch updates about the podcast or for other news, give us a follow on your social media platform of choice. Listen to the description below. Yes, we are at a meme number. Everybody laugh. We're 69. I'm your host, GM and overseer Podcast of Five Rings of Obsidian. I don't know if I said this already. Did I repeat myself?
You might have.
Sure.
Probably. Whatever.
I'm going to be honest. I zone out when you do the intro.
Well, damn it, Meta. I need your full attention this whole time.
I've heard it 69 times, Dan.
More
than that, because I say it twice.
He's going to say it twice now.
Yeah.
70.
That's the Dark Fortune Duelist meta.
Whatever, Dan. I'm off to go do teen stuff.
Go to Vegas already, yes. And the resident wildcard Mao. Y'all are just going on vacation. I'm going to be stuck at work. It's going to suck.
Rolling the dice.
Y'all suck. Why'd I have to get the flu at the beginning of the year?
When I get rich from Vegas, Obs, I will make sure to potentially remember you.
Just remember me. The like nothing beyond that. Oh yeah. Obs.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
All right, there
Obs,
we go.
yeah.
Oh yeah, all this money.
I'll take some money. I'll take money. You can even forget me after you give me the money.
I won't care.
I was just like, I don't care. Just give me money. I'll take the cash prize, please.
He'll never say no to that. Yep. What was the was it Wheel of Fortune where you could take cash, or the at one point they had you would pick prizes from a room, or what game show was that?
I don't know.
I used to watch old game shows when I was a kid because the Game Show Network was a thing.
I am sure there was like a show where it was like you could either take a lump sum of money or you could gamble it and attempt to get something better, because I know that's
there's like, the with the briefcases where you open the briefcases.
Deal or no deal.
Yeah, deal or no deal.
deal.
Where he was like, I'm going to give you $25,000 or you can keep going.
Yeah. And then you just gamble it. You essentially going for a bigger prize.
Yeah. That show is just yell at people and think you're smarter than they are and call them idiots.
Right.
And then if you got up there, you'd probably mess it up.
Wait, hold a second. How's that different from the regular day we go through?
Oh, fair enough.
I'm
thinking
idiots.
I can just see like now. I'm just like sat back and stare. My God.
Yeah, oh my God. What have I been doing this whole time without even realizing it?
Shows off second set
of sunglasses.
My God. All right, so you guys are Meta. You're going to Vegas, and
I'm going to Vegas. I'm going for the Final Fantasy 14 Fan Fest. It's gonna be hopefully a good time. I'm hoping that they will do as they've done in the last two Fan Fests, and they'll reveal that they are indeed working on the next expansion.
It's about that time.
It is about that time. We've essentially finished the Stormblood story for Final Fantasy 14, and they're kind of gearing up to start telling the next story, which looks like it's taking us to Garlemald. But they've still got a couple patches to go. Obviously, the expansion is probably not actually coming out until like late next year or early 2020. Probably late next year, I'm guessing, because of the patch schedule. But it'll all depend on how many patches we have for this expansion. But either way, we're building towards that. I think it's time to drop that information, because let me tell you something, man. Well, going to FanFest is great. Let's be honest, a lot of people are going there because they want to see what's coming next, what is down the pipeline.
Yeah.
But that might be me.
Or, get drunk with guildies.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Get drunk. Vegas is great. There was, I will say this, this was bad on SE, but they stated that they were surprised as well. When the tickets originally went out, it sold out within the first 10 or 20 minutes. I think it was 10 minutes. The moment it opened up, first 10 minutes in, all the tickets for it sold out. People were livid, to say the least. And SE essentially stated that came out the press, and there was like tobacco. Some people were saying that people were getting in before they didn't even have to wait in the queue. They were just somehow able to get in, and it was letting them get tickets before it happened. Other people were saying that there was like tons of scalpers and whatnot. And as far as SE came back, so they said that like only 500 people accidentally got in without having to really wait, but they didn't scalp or take extra tickets beyond the names that they put on for themselves, and the scalper rumors were put down. But that they did not expect the number of people because the 2 times beforehand, they literally had tickets left like right before the event. You could go on there like a week before and buy a ticket and still get to it. Yeah. So the fact that it just suddenly ran out this year is a little bit silly. So either there's a ticket number discrepancy that suddenly happened, and I'm somehow having a hard time believing that suddenly everybody got really, really interested in buying this ticket. So, but yeah, they came out and apologized for it. So, but I still encourage people to go to Vegas if you didn't get a ticket anyway, because Vegas is freaking awesome. There's a lot of stuff out there.
It's pretty cheap to go too.
Yeah, there's shows out there. There are events out there. Parties on the weekends from any place, clubs, and you name it. There is something to do out in Vegas.
But the legendary buffet. I want to eat a legendary Vegas buffet.
There is.
Ted's just went to Vegas like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
For work. Yep, for work. But he still got to eat delicious food.
Yeah.
And he actually had a fresh takoyaki.
Oh,
Mao's got like 10 days off from work or something, don't you?
Well, I took today was the last day I work until the 19th.
So 11 days off.
Sure.
No, it's 10. It's 10.
Oh, okay.
That's 10.
I also found out we had next Monday off, which I did not realize.
But,
damn it!
You know.
So I don't have to use PTO for that.
Nice.
Yeah, there you go.
Take another day off near the holidays. But you're going to be playing lots of gacha games, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Oh yeah, all gacha games.
That's why I'm.
Got to do your multitask gaming.
Actually, I might try and what was it? Yakuza 1 Kiami or something? It was one of the free games this month for PlayStation Plus. I might try that. I've also been back into building models, as you've seen me in Tets Talk.
Yeah.
On Discord. I picked up some and finally I had one sitting half finished on my desk for like the last year, I think, practically. Maybe not quite, but yeah. So
now it's done.
Finally finished it, and then moved on to more. So we'll see. Eventually, I'll just get tired of it, and they'll just sit around for a while.
That's how I am with like painting minis and stuff.
That
I
is
do it
exactly
like once a year. I'll get into it for like a month, and then I go.
I'll paint a mini, and then for the next 6 months, I'll be like, I should probably paint the rest of my minis.
I have so many D&D unpainted minis, so
it's the same thing. I just think that's the problem. Is like it's not super fun for me at all. I'm just not super engaging.
Doing things like painting little minis or working on like gunpowder models. I just like having something to do with my hands, like while I can sit at my desk or instead of playing video games or something.
I'll do it while I watch movies or something.
Yeah,
hang out.
I always have something on.
But
Ted's is actually working on a diorama right now.
Something with trains or something.
What are you working on? Like a convoy, and the Zaku's are going to attack it.
Got you.
Apparently, there's a hobby place near us that has like a contest, and only one person entered last time. So he's like, I might as well try and enter.
Yeah. And then his daughter can eventually blow it up.
It's next weekend, so he's working real quick on that.
Yeah. Well, let's get into topics, shall we?
All right.
Sure thing.
All right, I'm up first tonight. Obviously, well, probably not obvious to some, but BlizzCon was this past weekend. I'm not really going to talk about what all was announced there and stuff like that. More one specific announcement. But BlizzCon's where Blizzard gets together and, showcases their big games. So stuff related to World of Warcraft, StarCraft, Overwatch, Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone, Diablo, that stuff.
They had Laura Bailey sing.
Yeah, she did. She sang the song from WoW. I can't remember it. But it was the Jaina Proudmoore thing, because I think she voices Jaina Proudmoore.
Yep, she does. She's the voice of Jaina Proudmoore. And Liam O'Brien is the voice of Illidan. Yep.
Space Jesus.
Space Jesus.
He's out in space or something. I don't know.
He's out in space doing space
I have no
Jesus
clue what
things.
happened at the end of the last expansion. But anyways,
He went mano a mano with Sargeras, I think.
Yeah, they like zipped off on the Rainbow Bridge, or it's like Thor or something. That's what I got out of it. But
Mitsumi, Illidan.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, with the big kind of
what did it culminate in? What was their big finale?
For what? For the last expansion?
For BlizzCon. Their big key.
Let's get into that.
Yeah. So Blizzard kind of built up hype around Diablo. Something Diablo was going to happen at BlizzCon this year, and there's more came out. The story's kind of interesting if you follow the chronological timeline of it. So they announced a new game, Diablo Immortal, which is a mobile Diablo game, and a lot of people were expecting Diablo 4 to be announced. Apparently, I don't know. I haven't went through and read the redactions. I know Jason Schreier put out an article that said that they were going to show Diablo 4, but decided not to right before BlizzCon. But he had to redact certain parts of that, and I haven't seen what all he redacted, so some of that may or may not be true. I don't know.
I saw an article from after BlizzCon that he put out saying that they had a trailer and that trailer got pulled.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Blizzard said that no, that was not for BlizzCon. That was for something else.
Okay, gotcha. That's probably what he had to redact then.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, so obviously this did not go over well with hardcore Diablo fans who've been waiting on. I don't remember when Diablo 3 came out.
Beforehand that Diablo 4 was not actually going to be at BlizzCon.
Yeah.
Well, they I don't know if they didn't give expectations up or not, because apparently they released an article out beforehand, and they didn't give any specific details when they released it, but they were trying to state subtly, don't get your hopes up too much.
Yeah. It was like a blue post on the forums, or it was something like that.
But unfortunately, it also kind of depending on how you read it, it could also be a hint that, don't get your hopes up too much, tee-hee.
Yeah.
And I guess some people saw it that way and went with that way, and it might have been just better to say, we're not showing anything too big. Don't get your hopes up. But I guess the way it was just written out, there's a lot of contributing factors.
Because what did they show?
What'd you say, Mal? Sorry.
What did they show?
They showed
the
Diablo
best thing
Immortal,
ever.
A mobile game, which is something people don't want. Blizzard's kind of, at least in the WoW community, lost a lot of good faith with people, and I think the WoW and Diablo kind of overlap a little bit, because they're the fantasy stuff. They're different games. They're very different games, but it's your fantasy realm. I'm sure people love Overwatch and stuff like that too, and love all those games as well. But Overwatch is kind of like its own thing, whereas Diablo and WoW are all about the loot grind and killing stuff, and that kind of game. So Blizzard's already kind of lost a lot of good faith with people because of the BFA launch, and the game, for lack of a better term, kind of just not even. Everybody says beta for Azeroth because it feels like an unfinished game that they launched, and now people are kind of disappointed that there's a Diablo mobile game coming, and that they feel kind of like they were misled. And I saw one person's video about it saying what they should have done was do what Bethesda did.
Yes.
At E3 and shown their Elder Scrolls mobile game, but kind of buoyed that. Everybody forgot about it when they showed the teaser trailer for Elder Scrolls 6 at the end. So they could have just shown a little 10-second trailer, and probably there wouldn't be this giant thing.
They probably could have. I'll even one up, and I'll save you time and space. They could have opened up PowerPoint, slapped in Diablo 4 on that bad boy, and pressed F5 to present it, and
just a logo even or something.
Yeah, just a logo, not even animation.
I think the biggest problem with this whole announcement was its presentation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It should not have been the end of the keynote. It should have been somewhere in the middle of the announcements. So that end on something like World of Warcraft 3
Warcraft 3, which was what people liked the most out of BlizzCon. It seemed like
that should have been the closer. Diablo Immortal should have just been somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And yeah, or if it had to be at the conference, this conference was not the right audience in general for this game.
Yeah, there's. I mean, you have a PC crowd. You have a console and PC crowd who are going to this game. They are looking forward to what again, like when you go to these things, you're kind of hoping to see what's in store for a major development for the future of the series, not so much a side thing or something extra. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not always everybody, and that's probably shouldn't be everybody. But it's just this is not the target crowd to throw that thing towards, and to make it that ending thing. And even worse is, I think personally, at least in my eyes, is the death knell is the back and forth when the crowd kind of heckles and then the response given.
They
did.
Will they ever do a Diablo QA again?
Oh my God.
Probably not.
That was the worst.
Yeah, like
I
some
get
people ask, like, is this an April Fool's joke?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
And then
then
some people were like, will this ever be on PC? And one guy was like, no, don't you guys have phones?
That was the worst. That was the worst thing you could have possibly said to your crowd.
Pretty much. Like,
Worst thing.
It was not good.
I feel sympathetic for him because I understand completely what it's like to be in front of a large crowd, and
it's not the dev's fault.
In charge of this at all, right?
It's not the dev's fault.
It's not
so far removed from
it's Activision.
He's just like,
it's not
been told, go out there and talk about it.
They make the games Activision tells them to make, basically, and
they
mobile games make a lot of money, so of course they would want to do a mobile game.
Absolutely. And it makes sense. I mean, we've talked about this before. That market is huge and arguably is the future of the gaming market. It allows more people easier access, which we've talked about. Easier access is always a king when it comes to getting something to someone that you want them to play with. Everybody's got phones. Even if you're a businessman who never played a game in your life, you've got a bloody phone. The temptation to pick up a phone game one day is always there in front of you. But a gaming computer, a gaming console, that's something you still have to go out and buy and get. And that's the difference.
This is so it's not even being done by them. Like, they're not wasting development on this. Like, I'm sure they'll oversee it in some way, but it's being done by a Chinese gaming studio, and it's probably mainly targeted at the Chinese market because that's a huge market that's largely untapped by the West. And going mobile is basically the only way you can do it right now because they've banned all full console style game releases. Yeah,
it was just tone deaf a little bit in the way they went about it, because I think they could have expected this probably kind of reaction. But again, they have to do what Activision says. It's not the dev's fault or the guy standing up there. And I thought Blizzard actually responded to it really well. They kind of understood. They didn't blame their fans or
outside of the QA.
Yeah.
Outside of the QA.
Well, even the guy was kind of laughed. The guy kind of laughed about it a little bit. I think he kind of knew someone was going to say anything. He could have handled it way worse. He could have called.
Certain he knew when he walked up there. At some part of him,
was going to get
he
a bad
had to know when
reception.
he walked there. He's like, "This is not the best."
That's
way to
why
go.
I feel bad for him, because he kind of got thrown to the wolves in a sense. He's just trying to, I guess, make the best out of a bad situation.
Yeah. By the way, the Blizzard is in partnership with NetEase, who is actually making the game. It's being done from ground up, but apparently, from what people are noting, is that there are similarities between it and another game.
Yeah, it might just for all we know, this game could just be awful. Which, you know,
which I mean,
it could be fun. It could be the funnest mobile game ever.
I mean, it'll only reinforce the people who said this was an awful decision. But I mean,
I don't think it's an awful decision in and of itself. It's just the way that they announced it. The PR was awful.
Yeah, we've seen this before. PR can absolutely kill a game before it ever has a chance to sign. We saw this with Evolve. That game died because of sales and PR. That's literally how it went down. The game was a good game, but it was killed before it ever actually hit the shelves to be able to be played.
And one thing I don't like about the discussion around this is kind of in a sense, a lot of game journalists have kind of overly been defensive in the case of Activision and called all the people who were kind of upset and vocally upset about the game entitled gamers, and it started this whole entitled gamer discussion around this. What do you guys kind of think of it? Because I think people, as if you can respectfully and without harming someone voice your opinion, like that's fine. And ultimately, you're going to vote with your wallet on the game. And
absolutely.
That's like my 2 cents. It doesn't like do any good to. And Blizzard didn't come out and say that their fans are entitled. I don't think it does any good for you to throw punches at your target audience. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I see it all over the place about how mobile games aren't real games or mobile gamers aren't real gamers.
Yeah.
That gets pretty annoying. So that's probably a lot where it comes from. That's been a discussion for a long time.
Yeah,
like for many years.
I can't say I've seen it as much as you, but I mean, I don't think it's ever.
It's out
really
there,
died.
but I'm like,
it's out there. It's just not.
I'm just like, it shouldn't matter. Like if you have that label, like
I don't know.
Who cares at the end of the day?
Sure, it doesn't affect me. It's amazing how much people will like.
It's drawing lines. People are drawing lines, and this
gatekeeping the community from
It's
just because they might play a mobile game.
It's gatekeeping from like every direction, though. Not even gatekeeping. This is literally you're crafting. We're applying labels, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Is such a '90s thing to say, but don't label me, man. I mean, that's what it is. It's labels. Entitled gamers. You're not a casual gamer. Oh, you're a cell phone gamer
PC
or whatever.
Gamer,
you're a
console gamer. Blah blah blah.
These labels, first off, are creating. Anytime you slap that onto somebody, you're immediately giving them a categorization, and then that person recognizes that. They feel like that because they are being categorized as this, there is now an us and them mentality that's immediately assigned to them. And you push that. So you say, oh, you're entitled gamers. And gamers get upset because, like, we're not entitled. We're just saying what we don't like. But then those same gamers will then turn around and potentially say, you're not really a gamer. You're just playing mobile games. And it's like, then you've got hardcore gamers, casual gamers. And then that can even be broken down to, oh, you're a casual, this kind of player for this kind of game. So I may be a hardcore gamer because I'm playing an MMO, but I might be a casual gamer of that MMO. We're breaking these things down. You either game or you don't. It doesn't need to be so much different. I just may not spend as much time. Exactly.
It doesn't affect you how other people play. Just let them be, man.
But the problem is that once you start applying these labels, and we have game journalists, and this is starting. I'm seeing this more and more. I really am, and I wish somebody would like perform a study just to make sure that this isn't confirmation bias on my own. But I'm seeing more and more that a lot of game journalists are turning around and fighting with the gaming community, and we're creating a divide that doesn't need to be there.
I don't know which side is,
I'm not saying either side's right or wrong,
but there are plenty of people who are attacking game journalists too.
Absolutely. No, I'm not saying either side is right. I'm just saying like game journalists are going after gamers, gamers are going after game journalists.
Yeah, I'm just like every time someone puts out an article or does a game review or whatever, and they're like, I had some difficulty with this spot or whatever, I'll see tons of if I'm on a Reddit thread, it'll be like, oh, this person sucks, they're not a real gamer, why are they phony game journalist and all that stuff.
It's disgusting that we have to see this. There shouldn't be this mentality. Some people get tripped up by certain things as opposed to other people. Nobody's infallible. There are even moments where I game something, and I like to think I'm a good gamer. I really do. I want to be honest, but I think I'm a good gamer. But there are even times where I'm looking at something like, I just don't get what the fuck I'm supposed to do. And then somebody will walk over and is like, you just got to do this. And I'm like, son of a bitch. I'm so stupid. It happens to everybody. That's just a fact. There is going to be something that you're doing either wrong, you're doing it the hard way. And I'll give you a perfect example where I didn't recognize I was making my life harder. In Metal Gear Rising, when you play the Sam DLC, there is an ability he has which allows him to taunt an opponent. It gives them increased damage, but it also drastically lowers their defense. You never really need to use this ability until the final battle. I had gone through the whole DLC not using it because it just wasn't necessary. And then the final battle took me a really long time. It wasn't hard. It was just like, wow, this guy's got a lot of health. Why is he so difficult? And it wasn't until later, after I was watching somebody else do it, because I was just seeing somebody speedrun the fight, and then I saw them do the taunt, and I'm like, I'm a freaking idiot. I could have just done that. It would have lowered his defense and made this way easier to beat him. That kind of stuff happens. So nobody's bad because they don't notice something. But the mentality that leads into us versus them, that needs to stop.
That's a very simple tool of rhetoric.
Vocal minority. I'm sure it's a very vocal minority, but like, it just feels the need to tell everyone how bad they are at something. Like, even if it's like a developer showing off a game for the first time, it's like, why are there like, you know, someone who hasn't even played the game is just talking about how bad this developer is at the game because they're not doing it optimally. Because, you know, developers are probably using, you know, they want to show off certain things about the game and hit certain beats. So obviously that's not going to be necessarily the most optimal way to show something. My favorite part is just all these people who will just get so angry that they're not doing 100% correct.
Yeah. It just, and I understand, and again, just drawing it back though, we see it, and then it ends up causing attacks on people who then feel like they need to defend themselves, and then they create again.
It's a perpetuating cycle.
Yeah,
then everyone's yelling and pointing fingers,
and then now all of a sudden we're getting a divide where game journals are striking at gamers, and gamers are striking at game journals, and nobody's in the right at all. We're not doing anything. Nobody's actually discussing what is the issues of the game. We're discussing the fact that, oh, this person's an idiot for doing this.
Yeah, it's everything surrounding the discussion of the game.
Yeah, it's not actually about the game in and of itself anymore. It's about everything, as you said.
And that's what I feel the discussion around Immortal has even become. It's no longer like, what is the game going to be? Like, will it have microtransactions? Is it pay to win?
That was basically.
And I think that's where the anger comes from.
That's been the discussion. Like, people don't even want to talk about the actual like gameplay and whatnot.
And I think Diablo 3
it's not Diablo 4.
Yeah, and Diablo 3 had elements of that too, like microtransaction, pay to win stuff. If I'm speaking correctly, I've never played it.
It was the auction house you're talking about. It's the auction house that it first came out with. A lot of people did not.
So I think fans have a right to be wary and honestly react the way I did. I don't think, like, a lot of people said the guy who said that was out of line. I don't necessarily think, like, he wasn't up there saying anything defamatory or anything like that. Right. Yeah. I mean, he just had a strong react. You could tell he's passionate about Diablo. So, I mean, maybe they'll screen their questions better in the future so they don't have to deal with that. I don't know.
They should definitely do. But every fandom's got, you know, a vocal group of people that kind of act certain ways. Like, I've been told I'm not a real Diablo fan because I've only played Diablo 1 and 3, which is still 2/3 of the series.
Yeah, but Mao,
2, which is what everyone considers to be the
best, Mao.
Yeah, but Mao, you're not really a fan because you didn't play the best game,
right?
So I don't know. It's just people need to be better to each other on both sides.
Which I mean, it's easier said than done. I mean, there's always gonna be passion, and I know. The vocal minority thing, I want to make mention of this. We see it a lot, and I'm sure more than often it's right, but you see a lot of people talking.
I mean, sometimes it's backed up by the fact, like, there's a very vocal minority that say microtransactions are awful. And then the actual majority is, you know, they're making billions of dollars.
They make a lot of money, so
exactly.
people are fond with them.
Over half of Blizzard's revenue last year came from microtransactions.
I think all their games have them. So.
Why do you think they're making a mobile game?
Yes, I mean, that goes back to, you know, what it is. But then at the same time, as much as a vocal minority as they can be, that doesn't mean that just because it's a vocal minority, anybody should also ignore the vocal minority inherently because it's a vocal minority. I mean, we have there's a reason why there are very few professors or experts in a field as opposed to the mass majority who may or may not agree with those experts. So generally we defer to them. Not to say that these people are experts. I'm just giving you a point is that the minority shouldn't
sort of qualification to just shout at someone on the internet.
Yeah, there's no qualification for that.
I don't know. I got a degree in it. I don't know about you guys.
I got a degree in shouting at people.
I've got my doctor.
I have my doctorates in Flame Wars.
troll master.
But it still should be always warranted to never blind yourself to that small minority because they can make good points. They may not be right, but they can still make good points.
Right. Yeah,
but they could also be completely wrong.
Absolutely, but everybody could be completely wrong, and anybody could be completely right. It's just the idea is that don't blind yourself and don't deafen yourself to the majority or minority of anything.
It's the same sort of thought process as just because someone's using a logical fallacy in an argument doesn't mean that argument is wrong.
Yes, that obviously and that's actually a wonderful point to make. It still gets the point, which is what's more important than what the actual argument may always be.
But yeah, so that's what happened around BlizzCon. The good thing is though, like for all Blizzard's faults, I think they do like listen to their fans and try to like make better product and do better. They don't always initially make the right decisions, but I mean, they try to correct.
3 was pretty bad at release, but became a much better game.
Yeah.
As it went on.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I remember a lot of people were disenfranchised with the game. It had a lot of problems from the start, especially with people who were running through and getting to higher difficulties. I think the joke was that, do you want to play Monk on the hardest difficulty? Okay, here's what you do. Delete Monk and then create a witch or a voodoo master or something, and then play the game. I mean, there was a lot of balance issues. There were stuff like that. The game had a lot of faults for what it was when it first started off, but as you stated, it got better. And that will happen.
And wait till E3. I bet that's what we'll see Diablo for.
I do also know, as like, not to bash on Blizzard, I think they're an okay company. But not to bash on them. They have unfortunately done some things currently that have made people a little bit weary of them, and rightfully so. I remember specifically from some feedback of members from our FC who actually went to BlizzCon. They actually did state that there wasn't a lot there from what I've seen.
Yeah, I heard this was the worst value for your buck.
Yeah, it was really, there just wasn't a lot to announce. Like, you went to like kind of see what they're going to be doing, and there really wasn't a lot that they were telling you that they were doing. So you kind of just went to convention to chill out with people.
Yeah.
Which would be fine, except generally when you go to these things, you're paying a fair amount of money because you kind of want to be there on site when they announce these cool things and to get the cool stuff happening.
I feel bad for people who bought the virtual ticket.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people get really overly attached to like a developer or whatever, and like they, and nothing's going to be perfect forever.
No, it's not. No, as Blizzard put in their own game at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, no king rules forever, and that applies to companies too. Yeah. No company is going to be great forever. They're going to have faults. They're eventually going to have
peaks and valleys, even. Yep. Or I mean, and especially with something like this, whereas like this is old Blizzard would have been made up. The structure would be completely different, like different people, and then just different management structures and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people from old Blizzard have left. They're on the different.
The same thing with like BioWare or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, people have jobs, but they eventually retire.
Square.
Yeah, Square's absolutely Square. I mean, people eventually retire, or they want to work on something else, or they find a better job in a position. They want to move up, but that they can only do that at a different company. That happens. Yeah. People fall apart.
And that doesn't mean you shouldn't voice criticism. Just maybe like try and make things better.
Be constructive with it.
Yes, be constructive and try and be respectful, even if you might not think they deserve your respect. It's just easier that way.
I mean, remember that
it'll make the world a better place.
I mean, like, just remember that any one of these games can have hundreds and hundreds, quite literally 200 or more people working on it in different areas. They're not all going to be making the decisions.
Yeah. And then, you might have people very high up the chain will be like, we should have microtransactions.
Yeah, just and there's nothing they can do about that. Or there might be people on the inside who say, like, no, let's do this. And then there's other people who don't agree with that. And they may be right or wrong. We'll never know. But just remember that these are groups of people who make these decisions. And it's not right to attack them because they may not have agreed with it themselves.
Yeah. Blizzard apparently got very close to not even ever launching WoW.
Yes.
Which is a fascinating story, but
what was actually, actually, fun fact on this one. This is really funny. Apparently, in 2006, they made an April Fool's joke stating that they were going to apply all the abilities to the global cooldown, and then they did it with BFA. The Mad Lads.
No. Oh no.
Apparently, Jason Schreier in an article, a different thing from today, said he's talked to several people who have all confirmed that there is the Diablo 4 in the works. People have seen it. Like, he didn't say at what state it's in or anything.
Yeah.
But it might even get canceled. But, that's
Who
it
knows?
does exist.
Yeah.
It was out there. They approved
They're
it.
not killing Diablo.
They should have just shown something. They should
think.
if they just shown a little bit, they would have probably been fine.
Yeah, they really should have just done the Bethesda thing.
Yeah.
They really should have just done the Bethesda thing.
So.
That was really the smartest move to make. Just show it off.
Yep. All right, let's get on to your topic, Meta.
Well, if you love debaccles, have I got a story for you?
It's a very scandalous episode. And this one's very near and dear to my heart.
So, if you haven't seen the news today, or at least, well, today when we're recording this podcast, if you haven't seen it by the time it gets out, Square Enix just announced that they're dropping like 75% of DLC that they were going to make for Final Fantasy 15.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's a lot. And even worse news, I think, and this is actually kind of a sad one in my eyes, is that Tabata-san, who was essentially the head director on it when Nomura kind of stepped away from the project, to go work on Kingdom Hearts 3 for the next 10 years.
He was forced off of it.
I'm guessing he was probably forced off of it more than anything, because Final Fantasy 13 Versus was essentially what Final Fantasy 15 is now. He is unfortunately resigning from the company, and he's going on to create his own game company, which is kind of sad because the dude actually has a pretty good, decent track record. And he really actually put a lot of work into the game. Like, he's an unsung hero for Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah,
but
he's probably the reason it got made in the first place.
Yeah, he really is.
It was a very sinking ship. I want to know the whole story of that game's development.
Because I think he came in only like 3 or 4 years ago out of the 10 years it's been announced since it's been announced.
Yeah, but he's been with Final Fantasy for he's been with the Final Fantasy group for a while now. He worked on since 2004. He's been working on with them before Crisis for the mobile. But he's worked on games like Crisis Core, Final Fantasy Type 0. In fact, a lot of his stuff is Final Fantasy mostly. But he also worked on Kingdom Hearts Coded, and he's worked on Final Fantasy Dimensions. He's seen, obviously, King's Glaive, Brave Exodus, so on and so forth. But he's been with the company for about 14 years. He's done some good stuff with it. He's, again, pretty much the reason why they were able to get it out there in the first place. So, but he's going to be leaving. He's off to potentially create greener pastures as opposed to going to greener pastures. But what that means for Final Fantasy 15, we're uncertain.
Yeah,
fully.
We were getting an RNA DLC, a Lunafreya DLC, an Arden DLC, and who's the other one?
Noctis. Noctis was the last.
Okay, yeah.
We're actually getting a bit of a story to him, which is kind of sad because Arnea was a very liked character.
Yeah.
Lunafreya definitely did not have enough going on.
She did not have enough. She needed more, and unfortunately, her story's been scrapped. So anything that we could have potentially had that would have made this game full.
They're also releasing the companions or whatever it's called as a standalone game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
was weird, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting.
I wonder if it actually has been successful.
Apparently, it has been. I just saw an article about it. I didn't have a chance to read it, but it stated, at least on its glorious clickbait title, new game standalone, been doing very well. Essentially, what it boils down. But I could be wrong. Do a search on it right now while I'm talking. But unfortunately, we're only going to get Arden, and that's pretty much it for at least the Square Enix side of things.
Fun, but wanted more.
They also announced that they were closing or.
They're closing down
they were shifting the focus of Luminous Productions, which was the new subsidiary they created back in March, and the head was Hajime Tabata.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And they're also planning to experiment with subscription-based game models
Yes,
too.
that just came out too.
So,
that's such a big beast to do. There's a lot of things that are going on with Square Enix right now.
Yeah, they
guys,
just had a big revenue announcement.
Yep. Yes, they did.
So what the fuck is going on with Square Enix, guys?
I will say just because I get to be a little bit closer to Square Enix because of playing Final Fantasy 14. So
I told Meta to go and ask them next week.
Yeah, I'm gonna be asking Yoshi P. I'm gonna be talking to him and be like, "Bro, you're on the board, man. What's going on up there, dude? What are you guys doing?" So, no, this has kind of been an effect we've noticed within Square Enix in and of itself. Final Fantasy 14 has been kind of in desperate need for some refreshing and revitalization. And we're down the very, very large grapevine. So I would say take this with the biggest heaping of salt you can take, is that there has been some very conservative views by the majority of the company and the board about not wanting to try anything too risky with the game in fear of potential failure of it, because it is essentially a lifeline for them right now. It's quite literally feeding a lot of things. Bigger issue is that they've had a very hard time also getting and I don't know why this seems to be nearly impossible, but for about almost 4 years now, they have been trying to desperately get more battle designers onto it. And those specific individuals just for that game, mind you, of just FF14 has been up on their jobs listing for a very long time. So I don't know if people are not making the requirements or they're just there. It keeps going hashing back and forth. Nomura has moved around a lot. He was pulled eventually off of 15 from his time spent on trying to create 13 Verses, which is what led to the humongous delay on 3, which now Kingdom Hearts 3 is now finally getting made. They're all over the place.
It ain't gold yet, man. It ain't gold yet.
It ain't. SE's been all over the place, and it's getting a little bit.
Now he's working on Final Fantasy VII, and they're also wanting to reboot the entire Final Fantasy VII compilation. Now, is what they're saying. Do HD remakes of that.
I don't know why.
They have an interest.
The whole thing.
So Crisis Core, Dirge Cerberus.
Yeah, some of the what's the things where people talk supposed some of what people have been God, there's a word, it's like stuck in my mouth. Anyway, people think it might be they like shifted the focus of the one studio over. Like maybe they're just trying to get Final Fantasy VII now done as quickly as possible because they know they'll make money on that.
They will, but they're because that's such a game under such an eye of scrutiny. If that is not done right, people will crucify them.
But like, so their earnings report as of yesterday, like when they came out, they talked about how increased digital sales are prolonging the life cycle of new titles, and post-launch initiatives becoming increasingly significant more than ever, or whatever. Basically, which I mean, it sounds like they want to have more DLC. So them canceling a bunch of DLC, like, what would be the reasoning there, right? Like, they just can't. They basically said they're going to focus on this sort of thing, and then they just at the same time they canceled a bunch of what they were going to focus on.
I saw some industry people saying it might have been Jason Schreier. To go back to Jason Schreier commenting on stuff, saying that a lot of big studios like your Naughty Dogs and stuff are moving away from DLC in single player games and just releasing them as expansions, almost like whole completely new games. In a sense, like they did with Uncharted, because they had the one with Nadine and the other girl. I don't know enough about Uncharted lore, so Lost Legacy or whatever it was called.
Game.
Yeah, Laura Bailey was one of the voice actors, but they might be doing like more of that kind of stuff, I guess.
Which I mean is kind of what the these DLCs felt like in a way.
Yeah, they did, and I think a lot of it. Probably too is that Tomb Raider didn't do so well. The new Tomb Raider
did not do as well as they would have liked.
Right,
Shadow of Tomb Raider,
which is probably telling because I think they always put massive expectations, like millions and millions of copies are what they need it to sell, basically. Like well outside of what like any like a lot of other companies would be like, yeah, that's fine.
But it's what it really feels like is that there's a lot of internal shifting and moving that we can't unfortunately see, but we're very aware of, because this actually, as silly as it sounds, this kind of reminds me a little bit of Capcom about 4 or 3 years ago, when they just seemed to
they were at rock bottom.
Yeah, they were just at rock bottom. I mean, now Capcom is doing everything right. They are doing some amazing stuff right now. But they seem to just Square Enix is kind of in this rut, and I don't think they know where they're trying to go, and they need to figure it out, because we feel the effects. Even if we can't point to any specific reason, what's happening internally is affecting everything externally.
And so they've apparently always been a very difficult company to be a part of and to make these games for. Because, I mean, obviously you have, like, Sakaguchi left because he wanted to kind of have more independence and do his own thing. Tabata, I guess, is doing the same thing. Basically, the only old guard you have left is Nomura, and he just can't get anything done. So if you can't rest your laurels on Nomura.
Nomura is an excellent artist, and I am sure he's got some
he has awesome ideas. He's good at coming up with ideas.
But he's been put on a number of projects now, and those projects end up taking either a billion years, or he ends up getting pulled to something else, and it's left for somebody else, quite literally at times, to pick up the pieces for it.
Yeah, and he is allegedly very mercurial. Like, he'll just like, and it's apparently something he did with Versus 13. It was rumored to happen. He would just like try to completely 90-degree shift things, like when they were already working on assets for this one thing, and he'd want to completely scrap like half a year's work.
Don't get the Kingdom Hearts story without being like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You don't. That's true. But I mean, we've seen it now when Nomura was put on the head of Final Fantasy VII development. Final Fantasy VII had an outside team, which I don't know. I've also seen talk about that the SE wants to try to keep putting things on their engines. But I mean, Final Fantasy VII jumped off tangent there. Sorry. Final Fantasy VII was being done by an outside team, or at least was helping with core parts of it. They worked out, I think, for about 2-ish years on it. When it was finally showing off some stuff, and then
they gave it to someone else, didn't they?
No, they pulled it away. They just decided to pull it away from them. They didn't. There was for some reason, and they've never said why. For some reason, I'm guessing it's because like some guy scuffed one guy's shoe, and then it was just the end of the relationship.
In the elevator.
Pretty much. They pulled it away, and they haven't shown anything since for it, and we don't know where it is.
I guess the most. Probably the reason people would be or at least what would be the best outcome of that for at least people who are already fans of Final Fantasy VII would be that game that was being worked on was very different, and they pulled it back because they actually were like, no, we're just going to make it remake Final Fantasy VII as Final Fantasy VII. Like,
the problem is
back on like the weird combat or whatever they were going to do, but
the more Final Fantasy 15 style combat.
Yeah,
I would still kind of expect it to follow along that lines, but maybe not changing the story around or I don't know. I don't know what to really expect it with 7 at this point.
We really don't know anything. It's hard to say because unfortunately, as silly as it sounds, Nomura's on the project, and I mean,
which means it'll take 10 years.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I make that joke all the time. God forbid, and I apologize if it's annoying, but that is Nomura's MO. It's his MO.
Yeah.
That's just unfortunately
Kingdom Hearts 3, Final Fantasy 15. Like,
we've heard almost nothing. I mean, Final Fantasy VII was finally announced, given real life. What was it, like 3 or 4 years ago? And then we saw some information that maybe a year and a half later on, and then it's been silent again. This is technically 3 to 4 years. Most large games, when they're really big in development, take anywhere from potentially 3 to 5 years of a development cycle, and 5 years is a pretty long time.
Yep.
You start pushing into that without any news?
I think game development has gotten longer than it used to be, but
still. It is. But even so, they generally
have no.
Yeah, I mean, they used to crank out a Final Fantasy every year. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, development with the newer systems requires more time.
Yeah, exactly.
But but even at 3 to 5 years development time, we haven't seen anything. That's the problem. They gave us something.
2015 E3 was the announcement.
Yeah, so 3.5 years ago.
3.5 years, yeah. Which,
as far as we know, who knows what's going on with it?
Yeah. And that's the problem. It would be nice to kind of know, like, just give us a heads up, like, just throw like a line out there and say, like, hey guys, just want to let you know, we're still working on Final Fantasy VII. We are just, we're just doing some changes to it that we really want, to make it the best experience possible. We want to show you some stuff. It's just not ready right now, but do let you know.
That's a whole different thing that I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
Games getting announced and then nothing from them.
I know. That's
Cyberpunk.
It's like, just shut up. Just don't tell me. Let me live ignorantly blissful.
Yes. Don't say it. Yes. Please. I don't need to know that you're making something awesome and then you don't say anything for 2 years. I just don't do that.
5 years, I think, Cyberpunk or something.
Cyberpunk was touched on and then was never talked about.
It's just it's weird. I think the problem with Square still makes really good games. They have smaller studios who do stuff like Nier, Dragon Quest XI, Octopath Traveler, the World of Final Fantasy, which people love and is very well lauded. I haven't played yet.
World of Final Fantasy is fantastic. I know it seems like a kid's game, and it really is catered.
They're global games.
It's great.
Falter on.
Yeah, they're and they're mobile games, which people love. And
their mobile games make bank. They've got like 3 or 4 out that all do really well.
Yeah. Huge money in those
quirky little side games. I think the problem is the
expectations.
Yes, and the higher ups in Square have their fingers too deeply in Final Fantasy itself to let someone kind of creatively run with the game, and that's kind of like, I could be completely wrong, but just from my perspective, that looks like the problem.
I don't disagree with you, because again, from playing Final Fantasy XIV, the sense of stagnation, when a new piece of content called Eureka was originally announced by Yoshida, who Yoshi P for his affection, was originally announced by him. He stated that he really wanted to try something new and different with it. He was going to be doing something unique, special, something that would probably pull on some nostalgia from old players. There was a lot. When we heard about it, when he was originally talking about it, he sounded like this whole new piece of content that sounded really great. Eureka actually came out. It was not only came out very late, which was a problem in and of itself, but when it came out late, it was not that amazing. In fact, it was pretty much something we had already done before, if not exactly the same, with only like the slightest of change. It has kind of continued like that until just finally when they released the newest one now, and now you get to do some pretty cool stuff. But a lot of people noted this, and it almost feels like that the attempt to even create or try something, let a creative designer run with something and attempt it, is just stifled and held back. And it shows. It really does. Because then you get what we have now with SE.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have like 11 different studios and publish other games that aren't technically their studios.
Mm-hmm.
So they still end up coming out with good games, but it's like the main games, the top ones, the ones that they're like, this is going to be our best game of the, whatever year cycle, whatever. It just ends up falling.
Yep.
And which is really depressing because you get a game
they as Bob Ross would say, they pill it to death.
Yes. And it's this whoever I guess if you're saying it's hires up, if somebody high up has got their hand too deep in this project, all they're doing is slowly choking it to death. And it's a very disgusting death because you have a game like Final Fantasy 15. Yeah, it's incredibly sad because a game like Final Fantasy 15, and I stand by it. I've said this before on here before, but it could have been a great game. There really was.
It's the greatest game of all time.
It
has some great moments and not so great moments.
It does. And you can see it. You can see in the pacing and whatnot. But my God, if there was something realistic about that game that I forever will remember about that game, it is the communication between your characters. They had a great story.
It's certainly the most interesting Final Fantasy game they ever made, probably, just because of the development. But it's just sad because I love Final Fantasy. It's my favorite video game series of all time, probably, and it's just sad to see what it's become and what's going on with Square. I think the happiest I could ever be, the happiest announcement that could ever happen was if they got Sakaguchi and oh my god, why am I drawing a blank? The conductor back. Kill me, meta. Who is it? Oh my god.
For
he's on sick leave right now. Anyway.
I know, but I'm just giving my dream scenario.
Not Nomura.
Uematsu.
Oh my god. Uematsu. Yes.
Uematsu, like him and like Nomura doing the character art and stuff.
They got the team back together.
Yeah, like the late SNES.
Boys are back in town. The boys are back in town.
I would probably cry. It would make me so happy.
I mean, these guys, again, like they've gotten considerably older.
Yes,
and you know, people change. And
it's Nobu Uematsu. There we go.
Yeah.
Even if they all got back together, there's no guarantee it'd be any good.
Hey, Last Story was supposed to be really good. I never got to play it.
It's actually funny too because they did bring in a number of the head people that had worked on Final Fantasy VII, the original one. They actually have them on the project of this remake for Final Fantasy VII, but they switched around who was like leading it and who wasn't leading it. Like Nomura actually wasn't the head of the project. It was what's his name? There was a different gentleman. But he was actually the head of the original Final Fantasy VII. But when Final Fantasy VII then came back around and they're doing the remake, they swapped his position with I think it was Yoshitaka Amano. I think that might have been who it is.
The artist. Amano's like the logo artist, I think.
Or was it Yoshinori Kitase?
Kitase, yes.
Yes, they okay, yeah. So I'm right on that. Yeah, Kitase was he was the head of it, and Nomura was actually kind of like underneath him, and they've swapped that around. And I don't know why when they brought all the original guys back, but that's something there. And I mean, we'll see what happens from it. But these guys were brought back, so even they this specific they did bring them back for this. They are here.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that once Kingdom Hearts 3 is out, they'll finally start talking a lot about 7.
Yes.
Maybe it's that sort of thing where they don't want it to overshadow, Kingdom Hearts 3 coming out, but
maybe we'll get something about 16 soon, too. Who knows?
Yeah, I would expect to see if there's not something at E3 this year, it's probably a pretty bad sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that once Kingdom Hearts, like, their big Kingdom Hearts 3 is out, like
they gotta show something.
Or at least, I mean, even if they don't have something to show, they gotta they gotta talk about it.
Well, E3 will be bad if we don't. If we got nothing by TGS, then it's like critical mass, probably.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we need. I would agree. If we don't see something within at least the next E3 on FF7, this is not a good sign. That is not something you want to see happen.
Give me Urgis too, damn it.
Square. You do not mess this game up. This is literally the game that could bring Square Enix back from this could be the turnaround game. Like Capcom had its turnaround game. Yeah. This could be the turnaround game for Square Enix.
Man,
Final Fantasy.
It could be their Monster Hunter World.
All they have to do with FF7, they don't even have to do a new combat system. All they would have to do is make it the new graphics, and that thing would sell gangbusters. But they don't want to do it.
Absolutely,
they want to retcon some shit.
I can understand wanting to make a play different game style, because Final Fantasy VII already exists. They've already made that game. So if they're doing a full remake, I could see them why they want to, but I just don't there's a high chance they'll just piss off a bunch of the fans that already played the game.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll be happy at this point, but I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. I do remember though 3 years ago when they first showed the trailer, and I just remember that everybody, even game announcers and whatnot, and people who were doing reviews were tripping on the fact that this was happening. I remember watching one video. I can't remember what it is. It's the one guy where he's just jumping up and down. One dude just jumps on a table. He's freaking out. It's
like Game Informer or something.
E3 announcement, and then one guy just goes nuts in the crowd. The crowd's pretty silent, except one guy who's just like, "Woo!"
So
I just remember seeing this shit. It was great. It was great. I don't want this to get into what is essentially turning into very scary territory called development hell. And I just don't want to see that.
I don't want to see Square go bankrupt. That's what
I don't want.
I love Square.
I don't want to. I like Square. I do. They make good products. I don't want to see them fail. You don't want to see something good fail, but it can happen.
I just played Dragon Quest XI and I loved it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep, they still make good stuff. They just need. I'm just telling you, them higher ups need to leave their hands out of the cookie jar. Just let the people make their games.
I think 11 was, or Dragon Quest is like, because, or it's not expected to do well in the West, and like it's such traditional. Like they can't be like, we're gonna do this huge thing because so unexpected. So they just probably left it alone, let the people working on it do their thing.
Yeah.
And it turned out great.
Oh. Just let people make their games. Trust your staff. Trust your staff, Square.
It's almost like designers know what they're doing. It's like they've gone to school to design.
All right, Mal. You finish this off here.
So my topic came about from me looking around, reading things about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I apparently stumbled on an ancient discussion going back to that I had never actually seen before, but because like it started with people going, well, because some people would say it's it's an RPG, and then people go, well, actually it's not an RPG, it's only got RPG elements. And I was just continuing on along that line, and someone was like, The Witcher 3 is actually barely not an RPG. And then, people were like, well, actually, JRPGs, all of them, not RPGs.
What?
Yeah. And, apparently the flame wars have been had over this discussion.
Great.
Especially,
RPGs.
Is Zelda an RPG? Hundreds of pages of forums dedicated to this topic from decades ago, decade plus ago. So yeah, I was just curious, what makes something what does the RPG mean to you, and what does it need to have? Are there specific things, that sort of stuff?
Well, for those
don't you say it's playing a role?
Damn it!
I'm gonna cut it off there because that is. Not helpful. That is
only BioWare games are RPGs.
Only BioWare games are RPGs. That was my favorite thing. I was going to say it. Damn it. So the definition of an RPG. Let's just throw that up onto the table, just for the sake of it. Since this is actually, I think, a very cool conversation. And you're all wrong, so I'm right. Is a role actually a role-playing game is a game in which players assume the roles of characters in a fictional setting. Players then take responsibility for acting out those roles within a narrative, either through literal acting or through a process of structured decision-making of character development. Actions taken within many games succeed or fail according to a formal system of rules and guidelines.
I think
that's more of a table. It's more really applying to tabletop, but
I don't think that gives us for RPGs. It's a great definition for video game RPGs.
But it's not technically wrong, because that's where RPGs are pulling RPGs from. So when you make an RPG, you're thinking, well, this is the definition. So I just want to throw that out there. It's not always going to be to the T, of course. Which should be obvious.
Do you consider JRPGs to be an RPG?
Well,
many of them you don't make decisions.
You know what? That's true, but I have played a JRPG that allows you to make decisions.
But that can't be the only factor, obviously, because
it can't be the only factor.
Visual novels. You get to make tons of decisions.
Absolutely. But do they have a formal rule of systems in a visual novel? With the success or fail rate?
I think. Oh, go on, Meta. Finish your thought.
I was going to say, I think for me, an RPG, and this is just, hot take on it, but I guess. But for me, an RPG, a lot of games nowadays are simply going to have some element of an RPG in it, and I think that's really hard to get away from. The idea
any game with a character, you could say, is
yes, essentially. Even the joke that Tets made before he was no longer able to join us was that, well, I technically play as a race car driver in Forza Sport, so does that
Well,
count?
actually, the
I'm
newest
like,
Forza has levels, so
oh, it has level.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's an
you
RPG.
can level up.
My car's leveled up. It gets a
Right.
new spoiler.
Like if it's not Tetris, like you're gonna have a character.
Yeah, you're gonna have a character and whatnot. Generally, I mean, that's you're gonna have a character. There may be potential choices in your game. There might be a leveling system, or not even a leveling system as in like you gain a level, but there might be a progression system. Need for Speed
Right.
Underground 2. Let's talk about this game for a second. Need for Speed Underground 2. There was no actual character, so to speak. You were just a dude who's Need for Speeding Underground. You were against the law, man. Street
Listen to
races.
some dope tunes.
Yeah, some of the best. In that game, your form of level progression was unlocking better cars, getting better parts, and getting better customization options as you
Right.
progress in the game. While they cost more money, you had to win more races or do better in harder races in order to gain that
Yes.
cash to do so.
And
That's a
that-
leveling system.
Well, that sort of discussion ties back to the ancient is Zelda an RPG, because you get better gear and you get better, you get more hearts.
Yep.
Which is a progression system, but
It is a progression.
it's an RPG.
Yeah.
I think, and that's where I'm going to go back to where I'm going to stay here to make some full circle and make my true point. I think what really makes the game RPG is that the focus of the game. Any game that has progression of any sort is arguably got an element of role-playing games, which is what I stated earlier. But is your game focused on being a role-playing game, or is your game just a game that does like platforming or action of a sort and just happens to have those elements attached with it because it makes for a better game? And I think a lot of the times those lines blur a lot.
Yeah.
And there's a point where, like in the Legend of Zelda, technically, yes, that's you're role playing as a character. You're making not any actual true decisions, but you are making a progression. As far as following a formal combat system, following a rule system of success and fails, playing as a role of a character that can make choices, which will say that doesn't count for the choices part, but you are playing the role of a character, and that there's a progression system. You've technically met 3 of the 4 criteria needed for a role playing game. So it's got a lot of role-playing elements, but at the end of the day, it's still technically an action-adventure platforming style game, which is really what the focus is placed on. And a puzzle game, because puzzles. Which is another big issue, is that a lot of games are just kind of merging genres. Genre isn't separated by, oh, this is specifically a platform, oh, this is specifically an action game anymore. A lot of things merge now. So...
Right. And genre, like, yeah, it's pretty impossible to give genre a hard, like, put them in a box and nothing can touch, like, right? Like there's gonna be some bleed over. It's important, like the importance comes from being able to quickly give it a label and then quickly know, like you wouldn't say, oh, I played this RPG Need for Speed, because that doesn't tell you, like, you want to call it a racing game first, obviously, because that gives you more basic information.
Yep.
And
then you could always follow it up with, like, but there are some elements, like you get to get better cars and you can unlock cooler parts and better parts for your car to make it even faster, and you can change and tune it, and it gets into it. But at the end of the day, you are in a car, you are racing that car. That is the focus of the game.
Yeah. It's kind of nebulous, like kind of what you were saying. I think Ultima was like one of the first, if not the first, RPGs, and is very heavily influenced by tabletop role playing games. So that's where the term gets its name. But what more has it become over the years? To me, RPGs are very narrative focused, and leveling up is a key part of the gameplay in some form or another. So kind of like what Meta was saying, it all depends on what the focus is going to be kind of what main genre it falls into. And also what Mao was saying, everything has so many elements of everything now that it's all just kind of like blurring together. Does genre even have much real meaning anymore in video games? We're getting to the point in some games where it doesn't, but
we're getting it's to the point where a genre is nothing more than a way to quickly kind of tell you where the game mostly lies in.
Or you might quick sorting, like obviously when you're trying to look through like the PlayStation Store, sometimes you might find it beneficial to narrowed down by genre. Or
I like role playing. Role playing games are almost the sole kind of game that I play. So.
Me as well, which is why I find the discussion interesting.
Yeah, I love level up systems.
I am first and foremost someone who enjoys Japanese RPGs the most.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat.
When people are like, "Well, it's not actually an RPG." Well,
I would say honestly, it pretty much is though, for all intents and purposes. I mean, sure, you don't really get to make decisions in the game, but the game is very heavily focused around narrative, a set of characters progressing through a story.
And what it ultimately comes back to for in JRPGs is that they're pulling from RPG, like tabletop RPGs for their gameplay.
Yep.
Or their system, right? Like the background, the stuff behind the scenes.
I mean,
even attacking and defending, and
even the combat systems are
leveling up.
Right? Heavily RPGs.
The combat system.
Yeah,
they're pulling from RPGs, which is a big part of it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine if it. I can't. It's really hard to kind of think, and I know you're right because it's happened obviously, and it still happens now, I'm sure. But it's really almost silly and childish to think that just because you lose one criteria of what makes a role-playing game a role-playing game, suddenly that's not a role-playing game. How is the fact that
I was trying to find the comment? But this was within from a week or two ago when discussing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The person who was like, "Well, Witcher 3 actually isn't an RPG." I was just like,
I don't know how.
I don't even Their reasoning, I think, was because Geralt is already an established character, so the decisions you're really making aren't enough to make it an RPG or something. Yeah. It was ridiculous. Basically, I think only if you're playing a blank slate like Skyrim or the Bethesda games, I think were enough to qualify as an RPG. Is what they seem to be getting at, which is just
I think that
ridiculous.
I think it's a very, very strict and narrow field, and I think if you do that, you first off probably don't have enough imagination, which you desperately need in gaming.
Mm-hmm.
And you're gonna end up finding something that does not meet your criteria in some shape or form, but somehow at the same time defies all the things that you say are wrong about it, why it's not. I mean, and when you find that one game, you're gonna have a really hard time trying to decide what line you want to stand, what side of the line you want to stand on at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, it doesn't really even matter.
It doesn't.
It's just fun to argue semantics sometimes.
Exactly.
Sometimes I just like to start a flame war just to see who's better at it.
Flame wars don't really exist anymore because I think they're just the natural state of things.
Yeah, it's just part of everyday human interaction. Twitter is just a giant flamethrower.
Oh, it's what do you mean flame war? I don't understand. We're all hating each other all the time.
Exactly. I find an interesting line of thought is obviously beyond the obvious, what sets apart a Western RPG and a Japanese RPG. Other than that, one is made in Japan and one is made in the West. Gameplay
I got nothing then.
I saw some people. I actually saw someone's take on this, and it wasn't hard one versus the other, but it was more themes. A lot of Western at least these days, especially not necessarily older, the CRPGs. Baldur's Gate or whatever, but a lot of ones these days it's one man versus the world or whatever, one person, whereas JRPGs are almost always party based.
You know what? I can see that though, and that kind of almost falls back into.
And a lot of Japanese RPGs will focus on the power from within yourself being important, and the gear less important, whereas Western RPGs is more of an even split.
I can see that though, because the Western world is a little bit more about individualism and finding who you are and being who you are. There's already a greater focus on being yourself as an individual and putting the individual is forward, whereas and very heavily in Japan, where it is more about the group and the
community,
whole, the community, not so much the individual. So I can see kind of why the game is almost always a man versus the world in Western games, whereas in Eastern it's more a group. Kind of the power is in you all along.
The powers of friendship.
Powers of friendship. Taught me that.
And yeah, I mean, it ultimately, I think it comes down to cultural differences because I think they also were touching on the fact that usually you'll have a lot younger protagonists in a JRPG.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like a young protagonist in a Western RPG is probably like mid-20s or something.
Yeah.
Whereas JRPGs are like, I got middle school. Something here,
Exactly.
saving the world.
You're wielding a
We're in kindergarten.
You're wielding a world-destroying power, and you're how old? I'm 13.
Yeah,
I'm Sora.
I was trying to think of outside of like BioWare and then the isometric ones, which are like usually throwing back to older games. Like, just trying to think of what Western RPGs have a party. Like, usually it's been BioWare, which have just been, you know, they've been continuing the train since the older days, which is why they have a party.
Yeah, BioWare and Obsidian and stuff.
Bethesda
like that.
dropped it when they got the Fallout games. They because Fallout, the original 2 Fallouts were party based.
Yep.
Yeah.
But what was that?
Elder Scrolls doesn't have. They don't have. You don't have parties in Elder Scrolls either, do you?
No.
You can. I mean, you can get parties.
Some people do say you're considered Diablo RPG enough, an action RPG or whatever, so that you can have a party.
I'd consider it one.
You know, it's funny actually. Divinity has a party-based system in it, and it's definitely every character's kind of got their own personal story.
Yeah, but that's a computer RPG. Like that's kind of like a harkening back to like Baldur's Gate style of RPG.
Yeah.
Still a role-playing game, Mao.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of one that's like like one that's not trying to tie back to an older style, but like a new RPG game.
A new RPG with that's in the Western world that plays like a Japanese.
A lot of Western ones have like the kind of make your own protagonist, like
right. Oh, that was the other point.
Yeah,
that was creation. Yeah. That was the other point.
Whereas JRPGs always have like an actual narrative character usually.
Because people call Dark Souls a JRPG that's heavily Western influenced.
Oh, heavily
because of that,
creation, and it's by yourself and all that stuff.
Yeah, that is heavily Western.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But that is the Japanese role-playing game, technically. Well, not a role-playing game. I guess it's not technically a role-playing game. I think they classify themselves as an action game.
I mean, action RPG is the term.
It's like a sub-genre.
It's that
hybrid genre.
Is that hybrid? Yeah, blending genre. They put it in a blender and just said whatever.
Level up.
It's got levels. It's got a narrative.
Hey, if that's what the focus is, it's action and role playing, then it's a role playing game.
It's got a few like Dark Souls 1 at least has some decisions that affect.
Kingdom Hearts is an action RPG.
Outcomes. Right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So I mean, but there you go. Those are examples of certainly the Japanese development area making a very westernized style RPG.
Yeah.
Yep.
Immersion sims are kind of RPG. They lean a lot on the assuming a role, and then those are always like by yourself though.
Yeah.
Westerns.
I cannot think off the top of my head. There's potentially in there, but I don't think anything recently of a Western RPG that it has heavy influence from JRPGs. I just can't think of anything. I think that's a very. I think someone could come out with a game that feels very Japanese RPG, but I just don't think they would. It's not.
Yeah, they're going to be fairly niche now, right? Too.
Yeah. But I would like to see it just as an experiment to see a Western take on a Japanese role playing.
I'm sure
game.
There's some indie stuff, but nothing like big AAA studio. But
what do you mean? I don't understand. Square Enix is an indie development company, guys. I don't get it.
I mean,
indie development.
Squeenix Indies.
Squeenix Indies.
Squindies. Go get my Frosty at Squindy.
Oh my god! I wanted to make a division for indie games now called the Squindies.
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 You should pitch that to.
I'm gonna pitch that. I'm gonna pitch that to Yoshi. He's on the board. He is on the Square Enix board. So I am going to pitch it to him. You should make a department called Squindies. It's just Square Enix indie games.
Yeah. Stop that Hitman and Tomb Raider stuff. Squindies. But yeah, it's interesting to think about. And
yeah,
it's weird that the East borrows more from the West, but we don't see big West, Eastern-inspired West stuff usually. So.
No, I think it's because the market. And this is the nature of the beast of like when you have more people in one market as opposed to more people in another market. Well, if you want to make more money to produce more games, you generally shoot for the bigger market, and the Western world is a bigger market right now.
Yeah. Well.
except for China.
That and China, but
we don't talk about
again,
China.
going back to older stuff, China to get the the Eastern market is all the money's in mobile games these days for the Eastern market.
Yeah.
So that's why there makes no sense to do a full
China is its own beast.
full game like that, a AAA style game.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at Canada, USA, Mexico, and then you look at over Europe and whatnot, and even parts of Africa, heavy Western gaming influences over there.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest video game company in the world, though, is China, and
Yes, it is.
They do a lot of mobile games.
Oh my God,
do they do sell right now in China? But Tencent, which owns Riot Games,
yes, it does.
Straight up owns Riot.
That makes sense.
And then they have a lot of shares of many other games.
I'm gonna jump off of here, Sax, but did you see the new League of Legends music video that they've dropped out?
The K-pop one?
I didn't watch it, but I heard it was
I
awesome.
love me some K-pop.
So, Obs, you need to go watch this. It's so
I don't play
good.
League of Legends, but
I don't play
K-pop.
it either, but I love that. The animation is on point. The music is great. It is, mwah! Go watch it. It's beautiful.
They know their audience.
They've cooked up a beautiful thing for you to watch. And
every person I've met who played League of Legends is really into K-pop. So, weirdly,
I did not know that.
I played it back in the first 3 seasons. Then it's not for me.
Yeah.
No,
I'm just not big in MOBA. I think we talked about that once in our what game genre should you like?
I've never seen a MOBA with a good community.
Yeah,
I've never seen it either. That is the most
or
unfortunate part about
in-game
MOBA.
chat or whatever. Oof. But yeah.
Yeah, I would just say if you have the option, just mute your in-game chat. If it's possible, do it. If you can't, ignore it.
Why aren't you going mid?
Why? Where are you? Why aren't you doing anything right? I'm typing up a storm here, not progressing my team at all anymore because I'm angry that you died once.
All right, I think we've hit the tail end. Unless any of you want to say anything else about role-playing games.
JRPGs are not actual RPGs.
Also, some men are hot dog sandwiches.
Oh no! Let's not fall down this rabbit hole.
No. What do you mean?
Yes.
Lawful sandwich structure?
2 Pop-Tarts with ice cream in the middle. Is it a sandwich?
chaotic evil sandwich structure.
Yeah, the
Pop-Tarts are just ravioli.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
They are just ravioli.
Ravioli with frosting. All right, this has been episode 69 of Podcast of 5 Rings, your source of enlightenment in the realm of video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode, Podcast 5 Rings, releases Monday mornings on iTunes and SoundCloud, and Talk About Topic day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday. Check us out on social media, Twitter, Podcast5R, Facebook, P5R Podcast, Matt and Lily stream at twitch.tv/PSOFlow. And since everyone is on vacation next week, if Tets is around, we'll have an episode. But we're also getting into close to the holidays, so things might be a bit spotty here. So be expecting that, and we'll be back eventually. We're getting close to the to our year in review.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that episode because I'm looking forward to see where everyone's settling down on is their favorite things of the year.
I got spoiled last year.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's been a lot slower compared to last year.
Last year was
nuts.
Yeah.
It was like maybe the best year to consume media ever.
2018 might be that, though. There's a lot of good stuff.
2019, I'm expecting.
I mean, 2019.
Yes.
I'm stuck in 2016, Mal. Help.
All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Goodbye.
Later.